temperature now is dropping off quite significantly, down to 37 degrees, and I think tomorrow in qualifying it'll be quite a lot higher than that.
That's just what I was going to say, Sam, as I was watching that track temp drop as well, and I thought, man, they're not getting accurate data for how these tires are going to operate in the real heat of the day in qualifying. So you're going to have to be a little bit heads up here if you're the drivers and the engineers on these teams. When you look at the tire data, you look at the degradation, you look at the balance, all of these things are going to be affected by what, I mean, could be a 4, 5, 6 degree swing in track temp, if not more.
Wonderful shot heading down to turn 17, and in front of the Hard Rock Stadium is Will Buxton in the pit lane.
Thank you, Alex. I'm down here in front of two McLaren front wings. The top one for Oscar Piastri, just denoted by the OP. Bottom one for Lando Norris. Now, what's interesting is Lando's just gone out, having changed his front wing, and Oscar is sitting in his garage, having just changed his front wing. The fascinating thing is that Oscar has changed like for like, and Lando
miles an hour, 230 kph for these Formula One machines, the pinnacle of motorsport technology, engineering, all being encompassed into, well, 10 different design concepts. Verstappen and Red Bull leading the way at the moment in this practice session, just over 3.5 tenths clear of Sainz. But it's interesting, Russell has had a good go at it on the softs now, still only 15th. Hamilton out there at the moment, not going too well in the middle sector. He's just under a second back in 7th at the moment. So that 1-2 from free practice 1 seems like a long time ago now, Jolien.
It was the case last year where one session Russell was looking really quick, the next they were lost. And Mercedes, I mean, I think they were just flattering themselves with this morning's running. This looks particularly gloomy for them, I have to say. Hamilton just squeezing his time down, 9 tenths now from Verstappen, 7th place, a 10th in behind Norris. Surely the truth for Mercedes is going to be somewhere in between. See, getting a replay of Hamilton slowing it down for turn 7 and just running a little bit wide and making a mistake.
Yep, a little puff of smoke off the tyre and kicking up the dust offline.
Russell's been really odd in this session. 15th place, 1.2 seconds down.
I think it's three-wheeling through the left-hander, turn 2.
Now, how does that happen?
Just the car's running so stiff. Russell thinking is just lifting a wheel slightly as he's loading it up through turn 2. He suddenly looks all out of sorts. Looks like he's lost confidence in the car, and yeah, the load goes to the outside front all the time, the inertia and the G, and it's always the outside front that takes the work. And sometimes in low-speed corners, particularly thinking about Monaco, you end up lifting the inside front a little bit. But Russell saying that he thinks he's doing a little bit in turn 2 is strange.
Well, Christian's outside Mercedes. What can you tell us, Christian?
Well, Lewis Hamilton right in front of me, just coming into the pits as I move out the way. And what I can tell you is very similar to what we saw in FP1 when George came into the pits, and straight away the machine whirls into action as George's team immediately look towards the front of the car and sort of go, right, what's happening here? And I noticed as well a lady in the pits as part of the Mercedes pit crew taking photos on her iPhone of the wheel rims, each particular part of the wheel rim. As soon as George has come in, took a picture at each angle, the sort of 4 main points of the wheel. So immediately, as soon as George was in, everybody's looking around to see what's, you know, we've just heard him on the radio, so we're thinking three-wheeling, and then immediately you can see all eyes in the team on the wheels. So again, Mercedes digging into what happened there.
Well, if in doubt, get the camera out and take a photo and have a zoom in. Logan Sargent is on an outlap, the home hero in the Williams, and he's come into the pit lane as I thought he was about to wind up for a lap, but he's currently plumb last at the moment. So perhaps there's a few issues on that Williams, we shall see, but currently off the pace for the home hero, who born and bred in Fort Lauderdale. We're south of that, about 25, 30-minute drive from there, south of Orlando, for this Miami International Autodrome. The Williams do a practice pit stop, but it's rather slow as they get the softs off and put the white hard tyres on to that blue Williams, and it makes his way out to the pit lane exit. Short journey. Williams the last garage on the running, and back out for Logan Sargent. So a bit of a lull then, with about 17.5 minutes to go. Plenty of the cars in the pits. Who's out on track? Sainz is out there. Norris is on an outlap as well. Piastri, Hulkenberg, and Sargent, who has just gone out too.
Time for some long runs. Back to a traditional weekend. No sprint. This will be qualifying in Baku time, but there's more data gathering for everyone out there. Hulkenberg switched to a medium tyre. Most will, they'll run 2 sets of tyres in the last 17 minutes if they possibly can, rack up the laps. And on the low fuel, the soft tyre was actually lasting 2 or even 3 laps. So the degradation looks pretty low. The DRS zones are a little bit shorter. It's Baku all over again, but it's the conventional format here.
What do you prefer? You know, are we getting more practice running, which, you know, can be interesting to try and figure out where teams lie, or we could be enjoying a qualifying session right now where they're going full leather?
Oh, I prefer qualifying to practice. I'm still not convinced by the sprint format in general. And we just had a little debate on the Checker Flag podcast about the sprint and the race in Baku and everything. And I still just wonder, a lot of people were doom and gloom about the race in Baku, and it wasn't great. I didn't mind it. I thought it was intriguing, if not enthralling. But I quite liked seeing everyone pushing so hard as they were able to on the hard tyres, getting so close to the walls. You had Perez tapping a wall, you had Verstappen tapping a wall, racing each other, just lap after lap, pushing the limits. I quite enjoyed that. But maybe that's a little bit of an acquired taste.
Well, I think what did it for Baku was because we're so used to having quite entertaining races, and it wasn't as entertaining as the previous Bakus, which maybe amplified why people thought it was dull, when really it wasn't as dull as we've seen other races be, if that makes sense.
The thing is, a lot of the previous Bakus, they weren't thrilling either. They had a couple of iconic moments, but they actually weren't thrilling. And I don't know, I just wonder if some of the having the sprint made the race itself. It was a teaser for the race, and we kind of knew what was going to happen, and the drivers knew what was going to happen. So it'd be interesting to see, even if this is low deg and with a reduced DRS, if there are just more unknowns in this one, even though they're getting more practice time. For me, the holy grail is reduce the practice time and keep the old format. Make it a 2-day weekend. Saturday, Sunday, 1 hour of practice. Let's just go for it. I think that would be fun. It's then the people at the track that lose out, who want to be there for the Friday action. I understand it as well. It's a tricky balance.
I always used to enjoy watching or listening to the Friday action as well. You know, a lot of people brought up the idea it doesn't quite, if you have a qualifying for the traditional Grand Prix on the Friday afternoon, it prevents a lot of people from watching it because they may be at work or they may be at school, which I do get, but also, no, everyone, if you really want to watch it, you can always have a sneaky watch of it, and it's quite entertaining to do that. So, but I do think it's interesting, a 2-day weekend, maybe, but I'm not sure Formula 1 would go for it. They seem pretty convinced that they're going to try and make the sprint format work in whatever format they can, because the Baku format came quite last minute. So I wouldn't be surprised if we've got 5 more this year if we get another tweak to the format.
Yeah, what we know is that they're going to adapt it on the fly and try and fine-tune something, and they're not afraid of tweaking around. And I'm sure there will be plenty more change to come. If not this year, then for next year, and trying to find a model that really works. And the aim is to reduce the amount of practice sessions, basically. Make more sessions count is the remit. And that is what happened in Baku. Apart from the 1 hour of practice, even it made the 1 hour of practice count more, because you had to get out there and get something on the board, because the next session was qualifying, and if your Gasly and your car catches fire, you're stuffed for the whole weekend. And even practice counted, really, in Baku. So it did fulfill that role. But also there's more and more races on the calendar now, 23 races. It's a lot of races. Cutting down a day, a Friday. Oh, as Russell sends it into a spin turn. Your Scandi flick, and he's going again down at turn 11. Bottas would have been impressed with that one. Just another one outbraking himself in a big stop there. George Russell on a long run, as 19 of the drivers are, just De Vries in the pits. With more and more races on the calendar, losing a day of practice, giving people another day at home or another day off, it kind of makes sense. We're getting more action on the Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, as we just get a replay of George Russell going deep, locking up on that front left tyre and doing the, what did you call it? Scandi flick?
The old Scandi flick.
Scandi flick, okay. Is that a rally thing?
The rally term.
Yeah. And makes his way back onto the circuit. Christian, what do you make of sprints and the tweaked format? Yay or nay?
I said this on the podcast a little earlier. I'm still sort of glass half with it, and I can't work out whether I'm glass half full.
That's a joke. They find in the free practice.
And just careful.
Yeah.
He's still 2 seconds back behind me. You were on a flying lap, and Ocon didn't get out of the way.
Yeah, copy. But the free practice is that moment. It's good.
Come.
Fernando Alonso there on the radio complaining about traffic in the form of Alpine. I think that was Ocon in front of him coming into that really tight and twisty middle sector through 12, 13, 14 and 15. So not a happy Alonso there. Back to you, Christian.
No, what I was saying is Jolie made the point of F1 adapting it on the fly, and I do think fair play a little bit, because it's good that Formula One is trying to capitalise on the sport's increased popularity, in my view, and go, look, let's see if we can make it a bit better. Let's see if we can change things. Let's see if we can learn from it. The only thing I would say is it is very expensive to go to a Grand Prix. Like, we're talking the cost of a family holiday to go to a Grand Prix weekend, if not more. Practice sessions are often a really good time for people who've paid an awful lot of money to watch the cars in action. And what made me think of this is I'm stood looking at the main grandstand now, and you can just see the fans look. Every time the cars go past, they're looking at every detail. And I think if we're shortening weekends, are we potentially shortchanging fans who pay an awful lot of money? I understand that we want to get meaningful sessions in, but I'm not sure we should be taking the number of sessions away, because, you know, it's so rare to get to see these things in action for the fans, so we want to make sure that there's plenty of on-track action when you do part with your hundreds and hundreds of pounds to come to a weekend.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Hashtag BBC F1. Let us know what you thought as well. A couple of people getting in touch. I didn't enjoy the sprint format in Baku. Saturday was just a mini Sunday, but we'll forget that for the moment. Yellow flag, and we've got a Ferrari in the wall. And that is Charles Leclerc, who is well and truly lodged into the yellow Pirelli branded Armco barrier. And that is coming through the long left-hand sweeper. It's actually brought out the red flag as well. So time will continue to stop down with just under 10 minutes on the clock. Leclerc in the wall. Leclerc getting out of the car, Jolien. Turn 7.
He's very much win or bin, isn't he? Today, he's neither. He's bin, and he's third. And he jumps out. Crashed in Baku in that qualifying session, but he already had the pole position, the sprint shootout. Now he's gone front in at turn 6. Long left-hander. We saw a couple of crashes at this corner last year. Leclerc, I think he only knows one way to drive, and it is full tilt. He's always on the brink of. He's so quick. I think he's the fastest driver in the field over one lap, on average. But he does have a few moments with the barriers, and this is one. It's not a huge one. It's in on the right front, and here we go, jumping on board with Charles. Down a gear through 4, picks an apex at 5, all fine. And it was on the downshift, running a little bit wide on the downshift, thump into the wall. Front right is mangled. The rear of the car intact. That's where the more sensitive parts are. We're right near the end of the session anyway. There's, 5 minutes to go, 8 minutes to go. So...
I crashed into turn 8.
Copy. Are you okay?
Yeah. Just the front right, obviously, is completely gone.
Copy.
it's not actually going to be that costly a crash, I don't think, for Leclerc. New floor on that Ferrari, so long as that has stayed intact or they've got a spare, then that's going to be something to concern the pit wall right now. But in terms of damage, he straightened it up as he realised he was about to crash and didn't fight the car anymore, headed straight to the wall, and therein went the front right. But the rear of the car remained intact, and that's generally where the more sensitive parts are.
Well, Leclerc not wasting any time, straight on the back of a moped, and makes his way back to the pit lane. Work to do then for the Ferrari mechanics in between, this evening and tomorrow for free practice 3 and qualifying. But 7.5 minutes still on the clock, and the tractor is out there and getting that scarlet red Ferrari. And they'll have to have a little rebuild of the wall as well, but that shouldn't take too long. Christian is outside Ferrari.
Yeah, at the Charles Leclerc side of the garage, and the eyes of the team members here absolutely fixated on the monitors here in front of them. And I guess if you're a Ferrari mechanic, you're trying to get every clue from the TV pictures at this point as to whether and what any damage might be, as we see Charles Leclerc's car on the monitor in front of them, and they're trying to get as close to the TV screens as possible. So yeah, they don't look overly concerned down here at Ferrari, but they are certainly intrigued as to what state they're going to get this car back in, put it that way.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of work, but as you say, Jolene, the rear of that car looks fine, so certainly not too costly, and a new floor on that as well, so they'll probably want to do a little bit of a check on that, but actually, it was because it's the front right mainly, the floor should be okay.
Yeah, I think that they'll obviously have to rebuild the front right. I don't think it'll be significant there. It was a Tech Pro barrier as well, a little bit more give, and Leclerc getting a lift back on the moped. He's not going to lose much track time either. 6 minutes to go. The car is on a flatbed and coming back soon, so we'll probably get 4 minutes of action. No one's had significant long run lap times at the moment. From what they have, Verstappen and Leclerc have both done 2 laps on a medium. Verstappen was 1 second per lap quicker, and Perez was 0.4 quicker than Verstappen on his 1 lap compared to Max on 2. But that's all the data we've got. Andrew Ben's going to be very disappointed at the lack of long running. 5 minutes to go. Maybe it'll just keep us a little bit more in the dark about Sunday.
Well, there's the beauty in having these practice sessions. Just keeps you a little bit more in the dark. It builds up the anticipation for Sunday, perhaps. But session will resume then in 2 minutes' time, 18:26 local time. So they'll get a few minutes out on track. We'll see who takes the bait and runs with it. But it's Verstappen fastest, ahead of Sainz, Leclerc, Perez and Alonso. That's the top 5. Christian is outside Red Bull for us.
I am, and I half expected it to all go quiet at Red Bull, given those positions you've just mentioned, but you can hear Sergio Perez behind me getting back out onto the circuit, and as soon as the red flag dropped, really, and the cars came back in, Red Bull were busying themselves. There's Max Verstappen following his teammates quite closely, and Red Bull, I was surprised at their urgency. They clearly really wanted to get back out there ASAP, so Red Bull doing everything they can to squeeze the last few minutes out of this session and get back on the circuit and learn every bit of information they can. Certainly no complacency from the team that have so far been a country mile ahead in this championship battle so far.
Certainly is. Well, confirmation that the session will resume, and the cars then, they do want to get out there. They are stacked up and queuing. We are going to get a gaggle heading out on track for these last few moments of free practice 2. So let's see if they can all manage themselves in a fairly good order, because traffic management is going to be an issue if they all head into that middle sector right up behind each other. But at a time when there's a few mumblings about Charles Leclerc and perhaps a long-term replacement for Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, should he ever hang up his helmet in the near future. Right now, he says nothing's happening. He's got a contract with Ferrari to the end of next year, and certainly full focus on the Scuderia. But I imagine Mercedes and other teams will be looking at those kind of things. And as you say, he's building up a little bit of a reputation for win it or bin it.
But I still think he's one of the best out there. And if you're Mercedes and Hamilton in his twilight years, surely in Formula One, you're looking at Russell's obviously doing a great job alongside him. You're looking at who can step into Lewis Hamilton's shoes. There's very few people out there who have that maybe there's no one out there who can be as strong as Lewis in terms of pace, but also consistency. This is the replay of Leclerc thudding himself into the wall there. It's if you can't, you've got to at least have the pace to try and lead the line at Mercedes. And I think that maybe Leclerc or Norris is the wild card, who's still doing a very good job, 6th in this one. And apart from that, there's no one else to replace Hamilton if he's going. Hamilton still negotiating a new contract as well at Mercedes, so there may well not be a shot for Leclerc there, but that's something that Toto Wolff's going to be just looking out for.
I wonder, for Lewis Hamilton, do you think that actually Mercedes and their loss of performance after such dominant ways, that's actually now more than ever an incentive for Hamilton to stay on, because now he's in a fight to get back up front and work with that team to regain what they had. If they had just remained dominant, you have to wonder whether you lose a bit of motivation after a while.
He didn't seem to. He didn't seem to. 7 world titles.
Get bored of winning, right? Here's Sainz.
Well, just what happened to Charles? He lost the rear or the front?
He lost the rear.
So Sainz had seen where Leclerc ended up, nose in on that corner, and wondered how he managed to get to that position. Obviously didn't see the replay. A lot of the drivers could see the big screens around the circuit. Sainz then has been in the garage and a lot of drivers would have the screens down and see what's going on. Obviously didn't catch a glimpse of the action. So asking the engineer, how did he end up there? He lost the rear and corrected it off into the wall.
Well, just a minute and 13 seconds left, really. So Max Verstappen going full pelt to get the last bit of running and data gathering in before we head off into the evening, and we'll come back tomorrow.
I think Hamilton would be more likely to stay if he was winning, surely.
But
then you've got you're racking up the records, the wins, the championship.
But he says he doesn't care about the records. Yeah, okay, you love winning, of course you do, and that must be an amazing feeling to constantly do it again and again. To stay there is a mean feat, but I wonder if the satisfaction might be even greater if he was there, fell back and then got back. And is that something that will just keep him in the sport a little bit longer?
It's the get back bit though, isn't it? If he just can never get back, how well does he believe in Mercedes? Does he believe that they can turn this around for next year? Lewis is getting older. He's got, already now the little bit of chat about Leclerc coming in. It's not great news for Hamilton when Russell's the young pretender there. Hamilton's 38. He'll be 40 in a couple of seasons. Can Mercedes give him a car to fight for a championship before he's 40?
Look at Alonso. Made all the wrong career choices in his life and then suddenly makes the right one with Aston Martin in a turn of fortune. And maybe Lewis just looks at that and goes, well, you never know in Formula One. You never know what's going to be around the corner. We do know for this free practice 2 session, the checkered flag has fallen. So last lap times being set for on the medium compound tyre for the majority. But Max Verstappen then, fastest of them all. And Carlos Sainz just takes the checkered flag in second, few tenths behind. 1:27.93 over Verstappen. Then Sainz, Leclerc, Perez and Alonso, the top 5. Lando Norris kept it up in 6th. In that McLaren, so a good lap time on the soft tyres. Then it's Hamilton, Stroll, Ocon and Albon in 10th. Gasly, Magnussen, Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas the top 15. George Russell was P1 at the end of FP1. It's P15 at the end of FP2. Then it's Piastri, Hülkenberg, Tsunoda, De Vries, and the home hero Logan Sargent, 20th and last at the end of that FP2 session. And a couple of close shaves in those final few laps. We saw Sergio Perez in the Red Bull and Carlos Sainz in the Scarlet Red Ferrari having to lock up and get out the way of a couple of cars mid-corner. But an interesting session then, Jolien. One to whet the appetite for the rest of the weekend. Leaves us with more questions than answers, perhaps. But once again, it's Verstappen that finds himself at the top of the timing board.
I think it's been a good day for Verstappen. Not there in FP1, but we know he was there. It was only the final flurry of times that shuffled him down. He ended up 4 tenths down in FP1, ended up 3 tenths up in FP2, nearly 4 tenths up. And more significantly, it's not been a great day for Perez. I think Perez has never looked quite as comfortable as Max through both of these practices. Surely it's a fight between the two Red Bulls. So in that stakes, it's definitely advantage Verstappen after today.
Game on, Christian.
Game on. Some breaking news. A photographer stood just next to me, just dropped a very expensive looking lens, and there was a right crack. That sounds expensive. Anyway, the point I was going to raise is that as Carlos Sainz came over the radio and said, how did Charles go over there, I was going to come and talk to you guys about on the pit wall. I'm watching the Ferrari pit wall. Again, the level of detail, the guy's looking at the screen clearly still several minutes on, trying to work out exactly how Charles Leclerc went off there. So that is still clearly very much on the minds of Ferrari here as they peer closely at the TV screens looking at replays. But game on with the Red Bulls, and let's see how significant that little off proves to be for Charles Leclerc.
Indeed, if in doubt, Jolyon, a gust of wind to blame?
It looked like it was on the downshift. He came in, had a consistent steering. I'm sure he can blame the gust of wind. We're going to finish it with conservatory fan chat and bring it full circle the end of this hour.
Absolutely. A flick of the switch for a bit of conservatory chat, now that you know what the conservatory fan is. Practice starts getting underway to end this FP2 session.
Just a good through draft. That's what you need.
I'm sure the Ferrari technicians and engineers will be analysing that and going through the archive to see what quite happened to Leclerc. Mercedes reserve driver Mick Schumacher watching on from the pit wall as Lewis Hamilton makes a practice start at the end of FP2. So far, it's a bit anonymous from Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll at the moment. They ended the session for Aston Martin in 5th and 8th spots. So time to find for those two. Alonso wasn't happy with 4th, but quite good not to be happy with 4th last time out in Baku.
Yeah, the race pace is where Aston Martin are particularly strong, yet to really show the superb qualifying pace. We saw a bit of it from Alonso in Jeddah getting on the front row, but generally the race pace is where they come alive. They will be hoping that it was a bit more degradation, though, than we saw in the very few long-run laps that we had.
Well, more practice to come ahead of qualifying tomorrow. FP3 from 5:25 on the BBC Sport website and online. Do join us for that. Thank you very much, Jolyon Palmer and Christian Hugo down in the pits. I've been Harry Benjamin. Max Verstappen tops FP2 ahead of Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez, the top 4. Let's see what happens tomorrow in FP3 before qualifying. This has been an IMG production for Radio 5 Live.